Amid the stillness of a snow-covered town, a frail white Labrador retriever mother steps into a small-town police station, her eyes reflecting both desperation and an unshakable love. What unseen force guided her through the storm? Was it mere instinct, or could it be the hand of God weaving purpose into her journey? In this moment of cold and quiet, she carries a story of sacrifice and faith that will touch every heart. Could her presence be a reminder of the divine love shared through all his creatures? The winter morning was unforgiving, a silence blanketing the town under layers of thick, glistening snow. The icy wind cut through the air, sending shivers even to those nestled in their homes. On the outskirts of the quiet suburban town, the edge of Lincoln Forest stood still, a foreboding line of barren trees bowing under the weight of frost. Officer Ryan had just settled into his shift when the radio crackled to life. Dispatch to all units. Report of an abandoned truck at the forest's edge near Lincoln Trail. Signs of possible accident or foul play. Requesting unit to investigate. Ryan picked up his mic. Unit 34, responding. I'll head out now. As his cruiser navigated the snow-packed roads, Ryan couldn't shake the unease creeping up his spine. The air felt heavier than usual, as if the storm held a secret it wasn't ready to release. When he arrived at the reported location, his headlights illuminated the outline of a small red truck, partially buried in snow and tilted awkwardly into a ditch at the forest's edge. Stepping out of the car, Ryan pulled his coat tighter against the biting cold. His boots crunched over the snow as he approached the truck. The closer he got, the clearer the scene became, and his unease deepened. The driver's side door was ajar, claw marks etched deep into the paint. Snow dusted the seats inside, where bloodstains spattered across the upholstery. A broken dog collar lay discarded on the passenger seat, its chain snapped clean. Ryan's flashlight beam swept the surrounding area. Behind the truck, a trail of footprints was barely visible beneath the steadily falling snow. They were staggered, as though whoever made them had been injured or fleeing. Next to the human tracks, smaller prints caught his attention, tiny paw prints, irregular and clustered, as though a group of young animals had been struggling to keep pace. His breath fogged in the frigid air as he called into his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 34. Abandoned vehicle located. Signs of struggle and possible injury. There are both human and animal tracks leading into the forest. Requesting backup immediately. Copy that, Unit 34. Backup is on the way. Ryan knew protocol dictated he wait for reinforcements, but the tracks were faint, already starting to disappear under the snowfall. Time wasn't on his side. Gripping his flashlight tightly, he followed the trail into the dense forest, his boots sinking into the snow with every step. The forest was eerily quiet, the only sounds the crunch of snow beneath Ryan's feet and the soft rustle of wind through the barren branches. The human footprints veered slightly to the left, becoming more erratic as they went. The smaller paw prints followed closely beside them, weaving in and out, occasionally overlapping. Ryan's brow furrowed. A dog and puppies? The thought struck him as odd in the freezing wilderness. As the trail grew fainter, his flashlight caught a faint disturbance ahead. A dark shape lay crumpled against the white canvas of snow. Ryan quickened his pace, his pulse quickening with every step. When he reached the figure, he knelt down, brushing away the fresh snow. It was a young woman, her skin pale and lips tinged blue from the cold. Her coat was torn, revealing a hastily wrapped wound on her arm. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage, staining the surrounding snow. Her breathing was shallow, her body nearly lifeless. "Hang on," Ryan muttered, his voice steady despite the urgency. He pulled off his own jacket, draping it over her as he reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I've got an unconscious female in the Lincoln Forest. Severe hypothermia and injuries. Requesting paramedics immediately." "Copy that, Unit 34. Medics en route." Ryan scanned the ground around her, his flashlight catching more of the tiny paw prints circling her body. They were frantic, pressing deeply into the snow, as though something had been trying to protect her. His light swept further into the trees, and for a moment he thought he saw movement, something small, darting just beyond his reach. When the paramedics arrived, they carefully loaded the woman onto a stretcher. Ryan helped secure her, but his focus kept drifting back to the paw prints, leading further into the forest. As the ambulance disappeared into the storm, Ryan turned back to the trail. Sergeant Linda arrived soon after, her expression grim. "What's the situation?" Ryan gestured toward the forest. "Found her about 300 yards in. She's alive, but barely. And there's something else." He pointed to the paw prints. "These tracks, looks like a dog and puppies, were with her. Stayed close, maybe even tried to help her." Linda crouched, studying the tracks. "A dog with puppies? Out here in this cold?" She shook her head. "That doesn't make sense." Ryan nodded. "It doesn't, but the tracks tell the story. They were with her every step of the way. Something spooked them, though. They bolted." Linda's eyes followed the prints as they disappeared into the trees. "You think they're still out there?" Ryan glanced back toward the forest, the falling snow erasing the trail bit by bit. "I think they're running from something, and whatever it is, it's not good." The two officers stood in silence, the weight of the scene settling over them. Between the clawed truck, the injured woman, and the mysterious paw prints, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger and much darker. The blizzard raged outside, its howling winds battering the windows of the small-town police station. Inside, the air was warm and filled with the faint hum of quiet conversation among officers, the occasional radio static breaking the monotony. Officer Ryan sat at his desk, his thoughts lingering on the events of the previous day, the abandoned truck, the injured woman, and those puzzling paw prints in the snow. He was replaying the scene in his mind when the station door creaked open, a gust of freezing wind sweeping into the room. Ryan looked up, expecting to see a late-night visitor seeking shelter from the storm. Instead, what entered made his breath catch. A frail, white Labrador retriever stood in the doorway, her muddy coat speckled with snow and ice. She was trembling, her sides heaving with exhaustion as she looked around the room. Her eyes, filled with desperation and something that resembled unyielding determination, locked onto Ryan. For a moment, the station fell silent. The officers nearby froze in place, staring at the unexpected visitor. Ryan was the first to move. He approached the dog cautiously, his voice soft. "Hey, girl, it's okay, you're safe here." The Labrador hesitated, her body tense, as if deciding whether to trust him. Then, slowly, she stepped further into the station, her muddy paws leaving faint tracks on the polished floor. She collapsed onto her side, too exhausted to continue, but her eyes never left Ryan. Ryan knelt beside her, his instincts as a seasoned officer telling him this was no ordinary stray. "Get me a blanket and some water," he called out to the room. Officer Linda quickly appeared with a soft blanket, which Ryan gently draped over the Labrador. Another officer brought a bowl of water, setting it down within her reach. The dog sniffed at the water, but didn't drink immediately. Instead, she let out a soft whimper, her eyes flicking between Ryan and the door, as if trying to communicate something urgent. Ryan's brow furrowed as he reached out to stroke her head. She flinched at first, but then leaned into his touch, her trembling easing slightly. "She's been through something," Linda said quietly, crouching beside Ryan. "Look at her paws. They're raw from running, and she's so thin you can see her ribs." Ryan nodded, his concern growing. He noticed scratches on her legs and a faint trace of dried blood on her coat. Whatever this dog had endured, it had left her in a desperate state. As the blizzard continued to howl outside, the Labrador seemed to regain a small amount of strength. She sniffed at the bowl of water again and took a few tentative sips. Then, suddenly, she tried to stand. Her legs wobbled beneath her, but her determination was clear. Ryan placed a steadying hand on her side. Hey, take it easy. You're not going anywhere right now. But the dog wasn't listening. She let out a soft bark, more of a whine, really, and turned her head toward the door, her body tensed, her gaze fixed, as if urging Ryan to follow her. "What is it, girl?" Ryan asked, his voice steady but tinged with curiosity. He stood and grabbed his coat, recognizing the urgency in her behavior. "You want me to go with you?" Linda shot him a concerned look. "Ryan, it's a blizzard out there. You can't just—" "She came here for a reason," Ryan interrupted, already moving toward the door. "I'm not going to ignore that." The Labrador led Ryan back out into the storm, her weakened frame pushing against the wind as she moved with purpose. Ryan followed closely, his flashlight cutting through the swirling snow. They crossed the road and headed toward the forest's edge, where the trees loomed like silent guardians. The dog paused occasionally, looking back to ensure Ryan was still following. Each step seemed to cost her tremendous effort, but she pressed on, her resolve unshaken. "What are you trying to show me?" Ryan murmured, more to himself than to the dog. The memory of the tiny paw prints from the day before flashed in his mind, and a chill ran down his spine. Not from the cold, but from the nagging sense that this journey was connected to what he'd already seen. Deeper into the forest, the dog stopped abruptly, her ears perking up despite her exhaustion. She barked softly, then turned to face a large hollow tree partially buried in snow. Ryan's flashlight swept over the area and his heart skipped a beat. Inside the hollow, nestled against the cold bark, were 4 tiny puppies, their white fur blending almost seamlessly with the snow around them. They were huddled together for warmth, their small bodies trembling. The mother dog stepped forward and nudged them gently, letting out a soft whine. Ryan knelt beside the hollow, his breath catching. "Puppies, you brought me here to save them." The puppies were clearly weak, their tiny breaths visible in the icy air. Ryan quickly shrugged off his coat, wrapping it around the trembling pups. He gently lifted them, his hands careful not to startle the fragile creatures. The mother dog stayed close, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and pleading. "You've done everything you could," Ryan said softly, looking at the Labrador. "I'll take it from here." The journey back to the station was slow and arduous, but Ryan never faltered. The mother dog stayed by his side, her steps faltering but her determination unyielding. By the time they reached the station, the officers inside rushed to meet them, their faces a mixture of shock and compassion. Linda helped Ryan settle the puppies onto a blanket near the station's heater. The mother dog immediately lay down beside them, nudging each one to ensure they were safe. "She led you to them?" Linda asked, her voice filled with awe. Ryan nodded, his gaze never leaving the small family. "Yeah, she wasn't going to stop until someone helped." As the puppies began to stir, letting out faint whimpers, Ryan sat back and exhaled deeply. The warmth of the station seemed to melt away the tension of the storm outside, but Ryan knew this was only the beginning. The morning after the blizzard had passed, the town emerged cautiously from the storm's grip. Snowdrifts piled high along roadsides and rooftops sparkled under the pale sunlight. Inside the police station, the warmth of the heater buzzed quietly, contrasting sharply with the chill of the unfolding mystery. Officer Ryan stood near the kennel set up for the Labrador mother and her puppies. The 4 pups were nestled against their mother, who lay protectively over them despite her exhaustion. Her eyes followed Ryan's every move, as if she understood he was their protector now. Linda entered the room, a file in her hands and a grim expression on her face. "Ryan, we've got something." Ryan looked up, his brows furrowing. "Tell me." Linda set the file down on the table. "The woman you found in the forest. Her name is Sarah Collins. She's stable but still unconscious. We ran her ID, and it turns out she's connected to an ongoing investigation." Ryan's stomach tightened. "What kind of investigation?" Linda sighed. "Illegal dogfighting ring. It's run by a gang operating in the region. We've been trying to track them for months, but they've always been one step ahead." She paused, glancing toward the Labrador. It looks like she tried to escape with these dogs. The weight of Linda's words hung in the air as Ryan's gaze returned to the Labrador. Her muddy fur and raw paws suddenly carried a deeper meaning. She hadn't just been running to survive. She'd been running to save her family. "What do we know about the gang?" Ryan asked, his voice low. Linda flipped through the file. They use dogs like her in fights, breeding them for aggression, forcing them to fight for money. We suspect Sarah was involved initially, but something must have changed. Maybe she found out what was really going on. It looks like she tried to flee, taking the Labrador and her puppies with her. Ryan's jaw clenched. "And they caught her." Linda nodded. "From the looks of it, yes. The truck, the struggle, it all adds up. They probably left her for dead when she slowed them down." Ryan felt a mix of anger and admiration as he knelt beside the Labrador. "You didn't give up, did you?" he murmured. "You kept going, even when they couldn't." The dog's eyes, filled with a depth of understanding that seemed almost human, met his. She nudged one of her puppies closer to her, as if reinforcing her unwavering duty as a mother. Ryan reached out, gently scratching behind her ears. "You're stronger than most people I know." Linda's voice broke the moment. "There's more. We found evidence in the truck, blood, broken chains and claw marks. It matches reports we've received from other victims of this gang. Dispatch just informed me that the vehicle is tied to one of their known members." As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Ryan's frustration grew. The brutality of the situation weighed heavily on him. These dogs hadn't just been victims of neglect, they had been tools in a vicious operation, and Sarah had risked everything to save them. "We need to protect them," Ryan said firmly, looking at Linda. "If the gang knows she tried to escape, they might come looking for her, or for these dogs." Linda nodded. "I'll make sure we increase security here and at the hospital. But Ryan, you know this isn't over." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I know." Later that day, Ryan visited Sarah at the hospital. She lay pale and still against the sterile white sheets, machines beeping softly around her. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, but the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension. A nurse stepped in and handed Ryan a small envelope. "We found this in her jacket pocket," she explained before leaving. Ryan opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph, crumpled and smudged with dirt. It showed the Labrador, healthy and full of life, sitting proudly with Sarah. Her hand rested gently on the dog's head, and in her lap were the 4 puppies, their eyes bright and curious. The image was a stark contrast to their current state. On the back of the photograph, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "They deserve better." Ryan returned to the station with the photograph, his resolve hardening. He placed it on his desk and stared at the Labrador, now dozing beside her puppies. "You trusted her," Ryan said softly, as if the dog could hear him. "And she trusted me. I won't let you down." Linda entered the room, her expression serious. "Ryan, we just got a call. A black truck matching the gang's description was spotted near the edge of town." Ryan stood abruptly, his hand instinctively resting on his holster. "They're looking for her." The cold night wrapped the town in an eerie stillness, the kind that carried a sense of foreboding. Inside the police station, Officer Ryan sat at his desk, glancing occasionally at the kennel where the Labrador mother and her 4 puppies rested. The warmth of the station heater surrounded them, offering a fragile comfort against the harsh winter outside. Ryan's gaze lingered on the Labrador. Her weakened body bore the marks of her journey, raw paws, matted fur, and deep exhaustion. Yet her spirit remained resolute. She lay curled protectively around her pups, her chest rising and falling steadily, her eyes half closed but alert. Linda entered, her voice breaking the silence. "How's she holding up?" Ryan didn't look away. "Stronger than you'd think, considering what she's been through. But she hasn't let her guard down, not fully." Linda nodded solemnly, then hesitated. "Ryan, there's something else. Dispatch got another call about a black truck, this time spotted near the station. Ryan's jaw tightened. They're here. The station door burst open not long after, carried by a gust of icy wind. Two men stepped inside, their faces obscured by shadows and heavy jackets. Ryan immediately recognized their rough demeanor, the kind that came from a lifetime of violence and intimidation. One of them spoke, his voice gruff and low. "We're here for what's ours." Ryan stood, his hand resting instinctively on his holster. "I don't know what you're talking about, but you need to leave." The second man sneered, his eyes darting toward the kennel. "You know exactly what we mean. That dog and those pups belong to us." Ryan stepped forward, blocking their view of the kennel. "Not anymore. They're under our protection now." The room grew tense, the air thick with the weight of unspoken threats. One of the men moved suddenly, lunging toward the kennel. Ryan intercepted him, shoving him back, but the first man pulled out a crowbar, his eyes blazing with anger. "You don't know who you're messing with," he growled, raising the weapon. The chaos erupted in an instant. The man swung the crowbar toward Ryan, who narrowly dodged the first blow. Linda shouted for backup, her voice cutting through the noise as she reached for her radio. But the situation spiraled too quickly. The Labrador mother, sensing the danger, let out a low growl. Her pups whimpered, huddling closer together as their mother struggled to her feet. Despite her frail body, she pushed herself forward, placing herself between Ryan and the attackers. The second man tried to grab her, but she snapped at him, her growl deepening. Her protective instincts outweighed her exhaustion, and she stood firm, her eyes blazing with defiance. One of the men swung the crowbar again, this time aiming directly for Ryan. The blow was fast and powerful, too sudden for Ryan to react, but before the weapon could connect, the Labrador mother leapt forward, her body colliding with the attacker's arm. The sound of impact was sickening. The crowbar struck her side with a force that sent her crumpling to the floor. A sharp, anguished yelp escaped her, silencing the room. Ryan's fury erupted. He tackled the man holding the crowbar, pinning him to the ground as Linda restrained the second attacker. Within moments, other officers stormed the station, taking the criminals into custody. But Ryan barely noticed. His attention was fixed on the Labrador mother. She lay on the floor, her breath shallow and labored. Blood matted her snowy white fur where the crowbar had struck, and her body trembled with pain. Yet her gaze was calm as she looked up at Ryan, her eyes filled with trust. Ryan knelt beside her, his voice breaking. "You didn't have to do that, girl. You didn't." The Labrador's gaze shifted to her puppies, who were whimpering softly in the kennel. Her ears twitched faintly as if to reassure them, even as her strength ebbed away. Ryan carefully lifted her into his arms, cradling her as tears filled his eyes. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, though his voice faltered. "We'll get you help." She let out a soft whine, her body relaxing slightly in his embrace. Her eyes, now heavy with exhaustion, stayed on him. There was no fear in her gaze, only relief that her pups were safe, that the danger was gone. The room was silent except for the faint whimpers of the puppies. Ryan held the Labrador close, his tears falling onto her fur. Her breaths grew slower, her chest rising and falling in uneven intervals. Linda crouched beside him, her voice soft. "Ryan!" He shook his head, his voice barely audible. "She saved me. She saved all of us." The Labrador's eyes fluttered one last time, her gaze fixed on Ryan. With a final shallow breath, her body stilled in his arms. Ryan bowed his head, his heart breaking under the weight of her sacrifice. The officers in the station stood in quiet reverence, their faces etched with sorrow. The Labrador mother's act of courage and love had touched them all. Ryan gently placed her beside her puppies, who nuzzled against her still body, their whimpers soft but heart-wrenching. Linda placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "She gave everything for them, and for you. She knew what she was doing." Ryan wiped his eyes, his voice thick with emotion. "She deserved so much better. She was more than just a dog. She was a mother, a protector. a hero. As the criminals were hauled away, Ryan stayed by the kennel, watching over the puppies. Though the loss of their mother weighed heavily on him, he resolved to honor her sacrifice. The 4 tiny lives she had fought to protect would be given the love and care she had so desperately wanted for them. The Labrador mother's journey had ended, but her legacy of courage and unwavering love would live on, in her puppies, in Ryan's heart, and in the station she had transformed with her presence. The days after the attack passed slowly, the weight of loss and gratitude lingering in the air. The Labrador mother's absence was felt deeply in the small-town police station, where her courageous sacrifice had left an indelible mark. But her legacy lived on, in her 4 tiny puppies, who now depended on Officer Ryan for their survival. Ryan sat on the floor of his living room, surrounded by the warmth of a crackling fire. The 4 puppies, still fragile but growing stronger each day, nuzzled against him. Their soft whimpers and playful nudges brought a bittersweet smile to his face. He had named them Hope, Brave, Faith, and Grace, tributes to the love and strength their mother had shown. Hope was the smallest, but had the most determined spirit, always nudging her siblings to play. Brave stood tall for his size, often positioning himself protectively over the others. Faith had a gentle demeanor, her eyes filled with curiosity and trust. Grace, the most energetic, seemed to bring light into every corner she explored. As he watched them, Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of duty. Their mother had entrusted him with their lives, and he was determined to honor her sacrifice. At the hospital, Sarah Collins had finally regained consciousness. Her recovery was slow, but her first question upon waking was about the dogs. When Ryan visited her, he brought the photograph they had found in her jacket. She stared at the image for a long time, her fingers trembling as she traced the faces of the Labrador mother and her puppies. She saved them, didn't she? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. Ryan nodded. She saved all of us. She was incredible, Sarah. She never gave up. Not on you, not on them. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she clutched the photograph to her chest. I tried so hard to protect them, but she did more than I ever could. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You gave her a chance to fight, and because of that her story isn't over. It's just beginning. Together, Ryan and Sarah made a promise. They would ensure that the Labrador mother's sacrifice wasn't in vain. They began organizing awareness campaigns about the horrors of animal cruelty, using her story as a rallying cry for change. Flyers and posters featuring the photograph of the Labrador and her puppies spread across the town, each one carrying a simple but powerful message. Every life matters, every bond is sacred. The community responded with overwhelming support. Donations poured into local animal shelters, and volunteers stepped forward to help rescue and rehabilitate abused animals. The Labrador mother's story inspired people to act, to see animals not as property, but as beings capable of immense love and loyalty. Back at the station, the puppies quickly became a source of joy and healing. Officers took turns playing with them during breaks, and they became unofficial mascots, brightening even the darkest days. Hope, Brave, Faith, and Grace were thriving under Ryan's care, their personalities growing more distinct with each passing day. One evening, Ryan sat with Linda in the station's lounge, watching the puppies tumble over each other on a soft blanket. You know, Linda said, her voice soft, she left something beautiful behind. Those pups. They're her legacy. Ryan nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. She gave everything for them, and now it's up to us to make sure they get the life she wanted for them. Months later, on a clear spring morning, Ryan and Sarah stood together at a community event they had organized, a walk to raise awareness about animal cruelty. Families, children and dogs of all breeds filled the park, their laughter and joy echoing through the air. At the front of the crowd, Ryan held the leashes of Hope, Brave, Faith, and Grace. The puppies had grown into strong, playful young dogs, their coats gleaming in the sunlight. As the event began, Ryan looked down at them, his heart swelling with pride. Sarah stepped forward to speak, her voice steady but filled with emotion. This journey began with one dog, a mother who fought against all odds to protect her family. Her story is a reminder of the courage and love that animals show us every day. Let her legacy inspire us to be better, to love more, and to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers a testament to the Labrador mother's impact. That night, as Ryan sat on his porch, watching the puppies play under the stars, he felt a deep sense of peace. The Labrador mother was gone, but her spirit lingered in her pups, in the lives she had touched, and in the bond she had shared with Ryan. He looked up at the night sky, his voice soft. "You did good, girl. You did so good." The puppies barked happily in the background, their energy a comforting reminder that life, even after loss, could still be beautiful. As the puppies played at Ryan's feet, their joyful barks echoing under the stars, he felt a quiet peace settle over him. The Labrador mother's legacy was alive in their every move, in every wag of their tails, and in the love they shared with those around them. She had left behind more than just her puppies. She had left a profound reminder of God's hand at work in even the smallest, most vulnerable lives. Her sacrifice, born of love and courage, was a reflection of the unconditional love God shares with all his creatures. Her story now serves as a beacon of hope and a testament to faith, faith in the miracles of creation and the power of love to conquer even the darkest trials. Let her life remind us that God often works through his creations, showing us his grace through the loyalty and courage of animals. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to see God's love through the beauty of his creatures. Together we can honor her legacy by spreading kindness, fighting cruelty, and embracing the compassion that God calls us to show. May God bless us all to love, protect, and cherish his creations as the Labrador mother did for her pups. Her love will live on forever as a testament to his grace.